Hello. Have you ever worked with cursed fabric? I don't mean fabric with ghosts on it. I mean like fabric that has cursed your projects time and time again. Maybe you made a garment that didn't work out, so you took the pieces apart and then you made a new garment and that one didn't work out, and now you just have this pile of angry fabric and you don't really know what to do with it because it's cut into weird shapes and it doesn't really work with anything that you had in mind. So if that is also you, we can save this fabric. We are going to make a quilted jacket. It's a great scrap busting project. It is really beginner friendly and it's fairly fun to do if you're not going to make as many mistakes that I made. But if you want to see how I did it, let's get started. The jacket pattern in question I got from Seamwork. It's called their Easton jacket, although you'll see in the end mine doesn't really look anything like theirs does, but I was glad to have this as a starting point. I'm laying out my cursed fabric pieces over the pattern to get a sense of what I can realistically do and make sure that I have the right size pieces for all three of the fabrics I'll be using. By the way, my cursed fabric, the blue and cream plaid, is a really nice medium weight wool from Pendleton, so I was determined to set things right with this stuff. The other two fabrics are some pale yellow linen scraps from another garment, and this lovely Liberty print quilting cotton that my friend had given me a long time ago. The piece I'm working on currently is the back, which is normally cut on the fold, but I certainly didn't have enough pieces that large, so it will have to have a seam down the middle. I will also have a seam in my cursed fabric going at a diagonal, so I'm trying to be strategic about it and make it look somewhat intentional, which I think it does in the end. I'm marking the paper where the fabrics change so I can make sure I'm doing things evenly on both sides. And then I'm just truing up my fabric and creating the pieces big enough plus seam allowance to cover the area that I had previously marked on both paper and fabric. Here's a nice shot of the back of my shoulder and my hair while I transfer the measurements to my other fabrics. Alright, now that the blocks are all cut out, we're just putting them together, right sides together, pinning them, sewing them, and pressing the seams open. This is going to create a large rectangle of fabric, and just think of that as like your yard of fabric. Like we're creating a big piece, a big rectangle, and we're going to cut our pieces from the rectangle. But don't cut it really precisely on the lines yet. Just get the approximate shape and do the same thing with the cotton batting when you're at that stage, because when you sew them together in the quilting stage, things might shift. You don't want to get screwed because you didn't allow yourself enough space on the seams. Alright, on to basting. This is a quilting safety pin. You can see that it's curved, not like a regular safety pin. This just allows me to lift through all of the layers. In this case it's just 2 layers, but normally there's 3, and I put them maybe like 4 inches apart. You want it to be really taut. That's the point here, is we're securing our layers down as much as we can, and sometimes I even tape them to the table so that it's really taut. I didn't do it in this case because it's not a real quilt and it's a small piece, but when it's a big quilt you might want to do that. You don't have to buy the quilting safety pins, but they did make this step a lot easier. And now it is time to actually quilt our quilt. The lines you decide
to stitch are entirely up to you. You can even use a free motion foot and do a bunch of circles or squiggly lines. Just know that if you go with straight lines like I have and you decide to make guidelines for yourself, don't do what I've done here and use blue tailor's chalk on a light colored fabric. Truly, I don't know what was wrong with me, and this brings us to mistake number 1. I start from the middle and work my way outwards. That way, if anything shifts, it shifts outwards and not in a weird single direction. And I also like to start from the top, go down, and then turn the whole thing around and go from the bottom up to the top.
Well, the blue chalk did stain. There are definitely blue chalk lines. So, we'll have to find a way to get rid of them. This down here is wool, so I can't just like throw the whole thing in the washing machine or something, but I could probably wash it by hand and hopefully that'll get rid of it. Maybe like some dish soap or something, or just a little regular detergent. But I'm gonna move forward, and once it's cut out, at that point I might wash it.
Yeah, so that doesn't work. At least I decided to start with the back of the jacket, so maybe no one will really notice it and my hair will cover it up. That's what I'm telling myself, at least. Now that the layers are totally secured with the stitching, I can finally cut out the pattern pieces. I'm just transferring my marks to the other pieces so that things can line up in the same way, and now it is time to make the rest of the pieces. Let's review the steps then, shall we? Measure the fabric, cut them to an approximate size, pin them together in totally the wrong order, and sew them in place right sides together. Sew the layers together, and sew, and sew, and sew, and sew, and sew, and sew. A moment of appreciation for some heat erasable markers. Look at that. Look at those lines disappearing right before your eyes. Unfortunately, though, this does bring us to a very large mistake number 3, one you've already witnessed. In total honesty, I have no idea what happened. Somehow the blocking I had done wasn't big enough to handle this collar. I'm showing you my phone because there are some examples of quilted jackets that have a standing collar or no collar at all instead of a lapel.
So what I've done is drawn a line from here to cut off this part, because this is the part that folds back to do the collar. So maybe if I just do a straight line and then kind of see how that goes. And then for the neckline, because it can't have this extra bit either, maybe I can do something similar, like I think it needs to be a bit deeper than what the back does, but maybe it could be something like this. And I don't think I'm going to cut it from here. I'll just cut it from here. And I'm not going to make a mock-up because honestly, at this point, this project is cursed. Look, I already got pencil on it. Oi! I think I'll leave this and actually just try it on with this wonky bit still there, and then maybe I'll mark it while it's on my body or the dress form, and then I'll see if this is an appropriate amount of swoop, or like maybe I like this little height here. I'll see what I like when it's actually on.
Alrighty, we have pieces. We can make a jacket and actually see what we're working with and what kind of damage was done.
I want to include some cute binding that's it stands out from the rest of the jacket. So I need to be a little strategic with the right sides that I put together and the wrong sides, etc. So I really like how in this though, it seems like the shoulders, whenever I look at jackets like this, the shoulders are sewn right sides together and they're hidden seams, but then where the arm gets attached, which this is also a drop arm, which this will be the same, so maybe I can do that where the seam is on the outside and therefore it needs the binding to finish it, and that could be a nice little finishing touch.
Since the arm seams will have binding around the outside of them, I'm just trimming the seam allowance down a bit. And look, it's starting to resemble a real jacket! Trying this on for the first time, and actually it is way better than I was expecting, and I don't feel like I'm missing the lapel at all. It feels pretty normal. So I'm just playing around with what I'd like the collar to do, and I'm drawing the lines with a curved ruler and cutting the fabric. Finally, the home stretch, we are making the lining, and this was a breeze compared to making the jacket. However, I will have to transfer the changes I made on the jacket once I have the lining inside, since I didn't transfer it to my pattern pieces. pinning the lining in place and cutting the extra fabric so it lines up with the jacket. The actual last step is finally putting a bias tape around all the edges. Thank you so much for making it this far. I hope you found the video somewhat informative despite my many mistakes. Now let's show the reveal.